Hey, welcome back to the Vid-Bits, and I'm Brian here, and we're doing Game of Day May. We're on day 3. We're going to try to tackle some Marble Madness for the Nintendo Entertainment System. I'm going to start off here and put in our name. This is one of those games that really gave me a lot of challenge as a child, and I never was able to take it on all the way to the end. It's not a very long game once you get to master it, but there are some harder levels. It's one of those games I think is a little bit therapeutic. I kind of look at it as a toy instead of a game because it's something that can occupy my time for a little bit and I can move on to something else. Like those old Tomy wind-up toys and stuff back in the day I used to play with it. And the automated toys and the wind-up mechanical toys where there's usually a maze or something or a ball that you had to get to the end of a time limit. Marble Madness is a game where you're going to be holding the controller in an awkward way to try to fight this isometric landscape, and when you're playing it in an arcade it actually is with a trackball, which I find a lot more difficult. I'm not very good at the arcade version of Marble Madness, even though it's awesome. It's got a really cool sound to it that I don't know if it's the chipset that they used when they made it in the arcade or whatever, but it's got a lot of neat little bells and whistles to its specific sound set for the boards. The goal here is always to get to the bottom as fast as possible. You're going to be scored at the very end of the game if you do finish it based on getting through with as much time as possible at the end. Like as you saw there, the magic wand came up and it gave me 10 extra seconds. There's really no rhyme or reason to it. If you know a rhyme or reason to help make that trigger, please mention it in the comments, but most of the time I've found that nobody can find any specific thing that triggers it. But when you finish the game, it gets to the point where then it's not just finishing the game, it's finishing the game with dying as least as possible so that it doesn't affect your overall bonus. And I know I'm kind of making it look easy, but again, it's one of these games that I dedicated a lot of time just to practicing because it gave me such a trouble as a child, and I was like, when I became an adult, I was like, oh, I'm just going to dedicate some time to getting used to playing around this game's unique control scheme. When you hold an A, you go a little bit faster. If it looks like I'm going faster there, it's because when you hold an A, you can accelerate your speed. You can go left there and go down with those little pipes that push you up. I always prefer to go to the right. It's a little bit more intricate work with the marble, but I find it's a lot more consistent than letting those things fling you in the air and having to make that jump across the bridge there. This used to be where I first never got past, was this area here, and you kind of just have to bully on through. If you press up against them, they won't fling you off, but you have to keep pressing directly up against them. If you move anywhere to the side, that will just knock you way off. Those hammers are just devastating. Moving right along, this is the maze that you go from the bottom to the top, and it says everything you know is wrong, so actually you'll feel when you're doing this that the gravity is a little bit inverted in the control scheme. Plus I'm bigger than the enemies at this point, and when I kill them I get some time added, which is neat. If you get some in a nice path like this and it's random how they show up, then get them, but don't go out of your way. This is completely reversed. When you die, you need to make sure that you let your hand off the controller and just kind of like then recommit to how you wanted to go. But if you're like still holding the pre-existing direction, you're going to keep falling off and it's going to be reversed. It's crazy. Again, they call this the silly maze. Everything you know is wrong. Going up here, there was an invisible wall at the bottom of that ramp, and you couldn't really tell because it's invisible, but if I would have kept trying to push up, as soon as I got to the bottom of that ramp, I would never have been able to move forward. And here I am at the last stage. I don't really have a lot of time. I might not do it on this first run. We'll see what happens. I remember the first time I got here, I was like, I died at that first spot, and I didn't even get through that launcher there. It's neat because you can really, in your brain, kind of feel the physics that they were going for. That's like a metal grate. This is kind of like a slippery floor. This you have to commit. And here we go. Here's the end. If I can get past this, we'll be done. But this is the bane of my existence most of the time. Man, it's so rough. And you can get to like these little checkpoints, but if you don't get to the checkpoints, then it resets you there. Oh man. Ah. And I choked. That's okay. We'll get this next time. It happens. It definitely happens. Alright. Take 2. Maybe I can get a little bit more time this time. I only had 55 seconds starting that last one last time, and it was just a little bit short of what I needed to get a good handle on that invisible maze at the end. It's just rough. Marble Madness is also ported to the Genesis. I'm not very familiar with that version. This is just the version I played the most. I also know there's a part 2. I've never played that at all either. I've never seen this in an actual arcade. I'd love to play it in an actual arcade, but I played the ROM of the arcade version, but it uses a controller and not the trackball, which is, you know, even more difficult than because you're then playing a ROM of a game that's meant to be used with the trackball, whereas this is actually programmed to go with the controller. So it's really difficult, so I don't really touch it too much because I don't feel like I have a good handle on it, versus this I've learned the little nuances of how to hold the controller in a way where, you know, at the beginning it says you can pick 90 degrees or 45, and it dictates on, you know, what angles you hold the cross pad to be able to move the ball through the isometric field. Mark Cerny is the person that programmed Marble Madness. He's also the architect on the PlayStation, so it's pretty cool that a guy that went on to, you know, co-program a game at a very young age went on to develop a console that, you know, is pretty popular and went on to sell lots of units. Maybe I'll be lucky to get that magic wand to come up here soon and give me an extra 10. My personal best on Marble Madness is only dying one time, and I hit about 172,000 points, which is a really great score. There you go. And it's a really great score, but, you know, still I could have done better just by being lucky enough to have more time on the clock when I got to the end. And really the only thing that could have happened for me is the magic wand could have came up about the end of my run and just gave me that 10 extra seconds, and it didn't. And it's weird that the highest scores are only achieved by luck. Then you could have the best run ever and it won't matter unless you get that random element at the very end. And this time the hammers are being a little bit more bullish on me. But the main obstruction on this game and the barrier to entry that stops people is this stage here, getting used to the couple things that are going to trick you here that, you know, I make look easy, but only because I've had to go through them so many times. So this stage, once you learn to master this stage, and then the ultimate stage at the end, you know, the moving part, that's just really the hardest part of Marble Madness. Which is good though, because since it's only a game that once you complete takes about 6 or 7 minutes. If you don't do well, then you can just always reload, you know, go through it again, and then the practice that you're going to attain through the first couple stages will give you the skill set that'll eventually get you through these. As long as you're persistent and you continue to practice, you'll be able to eventually get through it. And then you'll be like, oh, check out my fun little marble toy. And it's one of those games that when you play competitively though too, you can play at the same time, and you know, if you outpace your opponent, it actually makes them lose time trying to catch up to you. And it's really bullish if one person's good and the other person isn't, because they don't really even get a shot. I have a lot more time here at the end. I just gotta be patient, take my time, and hope that when I do fall that I don't have to like get swept up, because that's a lot of the variance and how much the time is that right there. Man. I won't lie. It's just I'm cracking under the pressure. It's one of those things that also in front of a group of my friends I've gotten effortlessly to the end and then got here and it's just so rough. I apologize. It looks like we're running through again. I had way more time that time too. All right. It's all good. It's one of those situations where you just have to be calm, and just take it as it comes. You're going to have good runs and you're going to have bad runs. It's like when I try to go through Mario 1 and die on the first Goomba. It's just funny. You just kind of have to laugh at yourself. I'm a little bit out of practice. I can't tell you the last time I've beat Marble Madness. I know that I'm capable of it. And the thing about also when you're trying to get really good at a game, you get in fighting form because you practice it for a long time. Like, I'm a world class DuckTales runner, but if I was to play it right now, I probably wouldn't do too well because I'm out of practice. Like, and when I was practicing, I was doing a lot of time every day.
Oh, it's totally frozen.
Okay.
We can just reboot it real quick.
Okay.
Okay. Here, Julio, I think that's who's in chat. We're gonna quickly restart and then we'll be right back.